We want to go back to our top story today after the weather, which is what happened in Washington, D.C., the ongoing Twitter tirade involving President Trump and the Senator Corker from Tennessee, and also the comments, the very stinging comments made on the floor of the U.S. Senate today by Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. We're joined right now by our former senator here in Florida, George LeMieux. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. And this is one ugly battle involving the Republican Party. What do you make of it?
Well, it's better to be in South Florida than in Washington, is the first thing. Look, tensions are high. The sentiment is boiling over in Washington. People are frustrated that Washington can't get anything done. Republicans are especially frustrated because we have a Republican president, Republican Senate, and a Republican House. We're 10 months into this new administration and not a major piece of legislation has been passed. So people like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker, and frankly the president, have very low approval ratings right now. And you're seeing that anger boil over. And if they can't get tax reform done, they're going to be in tough shape for this election coming up next November.
So what does it mean for the Republican Party now going forward? I mean, it seems to almost be imploding to some looking in on this.
It's a challenge. And the war of words is not helpful. And to have a sitting United States Senator like Jeff Flake go to the floor today, basically say, I'm leaving Congress, and attack the president. Didn't say it by name, but it was certainly all of his comments were at the president. Wrote a book, basically, that's now a bestseller, which is against President Trump. It's not good for the party. This is a transformational time for the Republican Party. And Donald Trump is not a normal Republican president. He has views that are very different. And his ability and willingness to go after members of his own party is not helping. Look at the health care debate. I think that John McCain may have not voted for health care reform because of his personal animosity to the president. He was the deciding vote. And if that happens on taxes, where the Republicans only have 2 extra votes to spare in the Senate, if one of these folks like Flake or Corker says, hey, I don't like this bill, I'm not voting for it, it could be devastating to the Republican Party.
You served in the U.S. Senate. You know the traditions. This is one of those august bodies in the entire world where you see these lawmakers that come together. They're very civilized. And yet today we saw Senator Flake talk about the fact that he has children, grandchildren that he needs to speak up for. He doesn't want them coming to him years from now and saying, what did you do when this was happening to the country, when this was happening to the office of the President of the United States? As you heard those words, given the experiences that you have serving in the U.S. Senate, what did you think?
Well, I thought it was very sad. And I can understand why Jeff said those things. And I can also understand why people are so angry with Congress. And really at home in Arizona, Jeff Flake is not popular with his Republican base because they want to see change. So it is a time of great tension and great transformation. If they can get tax reform done and the American people see a victory and the economy continues to be good, then I think Republicans can do okay next November. If they don't get tax reform done, Republicans are in big trouble. And right now you're seeing Democrats recruit a lot more candidates than Republicans are and raising a lot more money than Republicans are.
Who do you blame for this, and how much would you like to see President Trump's Twitter account just blocked?
Well, I think he should put the Twitter down. Look, presidents of both parties in the past have had people attack them and they just bite their tongue and they take a pass. You have to be strategic about your fights. The American people wanted a fighter. They wanted someone to go to Washington and change things because Democrats and Republicans are really frustrated that nothing's happening in Washington. Nothing happened when President Obama was there after he lost his supermajority in the first 2 years. That's when I was in the Senate. For the next 6 years, nothing happened. Nothing's happening for this first year. The American people want something done. But for the president to go after members of his own party who he needs for these votes when there's only 52 senators is not good politics.
And speaking of former President Obama, he recently spoke out and said if you have to win an election by dividing people, you're not going to be able to govern them. And then today we heard Senator Flake basically saying, I don't want to be complicit, and everyone else who is not speaking up is now complicit in this incivility that's happening within the Republican Party. Do you agree with that?
Well, there's incivility in politics. It's not just the Republican Party. President Bush spoke out about it last week as well. And we're not doing ourselves any favors as Americans by not allowing for real debate and deliberation. And look, the people in politics are a reflection of the people who elect them. So we're at fault too. We've got to do a better job as Floridians and Americans of having conversations with people who may have different beliefs than we do and being civil about it and respecting them and realizing we may disagree on this issue, but we may agree on that issue. Washington is reflecting what's happening in the culture of this country, which unfortunately we're becoming more divided instead of united.
One more question, and we only have a second or two. Do you think that there will be more Republicans following the lead of Senators Corker and Flake and coming out and speaking more forcefully about this president?
Well, if they're not going to run for re-election, because if they're going to run for re-election, they're going to have to be aligned with this president, because President Trump is very much in tune with the base of the party, what I would call a very angry base right now. And that's why I think Flake decided not to run. I think Corker did not want to get married to that, to run for re-election in Tennessee. So I don't think you'll see people being openly critical unless they're saying, that's enough for me, I'm stepping away.
Former Senator George LeMieux, thank you very much. We may have an interesting Senate race coming up in Florida very soon.
Just a small chance.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you.